later if he's not on already. Second item tonight is the auditor's report from King and Associates. Amy, we'll pass it over to you to bring King up.
I believe we have Chris King. And I thought I saw Marshall here too, but Marshall Dean, there you are. Hi, Chris, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
I guess you can move
Okay,
forward
we
with
can.
the presentation.
Okay. Can you see me pretty well?
Yeah.
All right. I think they said we would be able to have a desktop sharing, but I don't think it's on right now, or at least not for me.
Oh, okay, but yep, that's my fault.
I was just gonna do the usual, which we do pretty routinely now, where we have our presentation PowerPoint slide that we put together. Should throw it up now. Hopefully on the big screen you can see it. Just getting oriented here. All right, so we've got Marshall. Marshall actually does a lot of the what we call field work, the on-site work. He does a lot of the direct contact with your financial people. And we have other members of our team. And then we have, people like me who oversee and review it. We bounce around issues. We have, other people that work and do their work and report to Marshall. They bring ideas and issues up to him and we hash them out. Every audit year is different. What happens in the town is different. The testing that we do, we try to change that around. And we have different areas that we have put more emphasis on, and we generally change that and update that as we gather experience from other audits. We're able to share the experiences that we have on different audits with different groups of our team members and put them into action into other areas. So what we're going to do is I think I'm going to take the front half of this presentation, and as usual, what we do is we reference the different portions of the audit. We don't go through every page, but leave that to the direction of the board chair as to how they want to go. But this first page, audit sections, I always say the further you go deeper into the audit, the more detail there is. The first section is this management discussion and analysis, which really is more of a high-level discussion and a bullet point section. It'll say, gee, our fund balance went up in the general fund, and these were some contributing factors, or this is a significant event that happened related to our debt or our capital assets. After that comes 3 sets of financial statements. You have your government-wide financial statements that are on the full accrual basis, very summarized. The second set is on the fund basis. So you have your general fund, there's capital funds, you'll have grant funds and things like that. And then behind those financial statements are notes and budget reports, and then other supplemental statements. Outside of that, you also have a state single audit every year, which is a grant compliance audit of your state funds, and a federal single audit that you have pretty much every year from federal funds. And of course, the focus of that this year and probably next year is going to be COVID related funds. The coronavirus relief fund this year. The schools have the ESSER funds, ESSER, and then you're going to have ARPA funds being spent. So this past audit cycle, the one you're in now, and maybe even the one after that, 22-23, we'll have a lot of focus on the stimulus funds. And the last section, which we don't really cover much when we talk to the boards of finance, is a set of procedures that are specified by the Connecticut State Department of Education. They define their own, we could call it a mini audit. It's a checklist of testing that they want the auditors to do, or they require the auditors to do. And that has its own separate report that goes right to the Connecticut State Department of Education. Not only is it likely that a lot of you have never heard of this, but we wanted to let you know that the State Department of Ed has made this a bit more onerous, not just for us, but also for the Board of Ed people. They've changed their system, and then they told us to do testing on this system, and the system doesn't generate the necessary reports to do that. So it's been more work both on us as auditors, but also as at the local board level, just trying to get the information to us. So these are references right to your audit. I mentioned that first set of statements, the government-wide financial statements, which, you know, as you look at those pages, they could be so condensed that it's really hard for you to get any information out of, because all the funds are condensed, jammed into one column, and except for the pension fund. But there's also depreciation in there, and I'm sure that you don't factor depreciation of your school buildings and your bridges into your budgeting. So a lot of times the boards don't spend much time there. Page 13 starts the fund basis financial statements, and that's typically where town management starts to spend more of their time. General fund balance was 1.9 million. There are different buckets in that total fund balance, and we can look, you'll see the detail on page 37. A couple benchmarks that people looked at. One of them is from this GFOA, where they say 2 months of your revenues, 2 months of your annual budgeted revenues is a good measure of surplus. So that turns out to be 16.67% of your budgeted revenues. You're below that benchmark at 7.5% right now. And the other benchmark is the bond rating agencies, which were 10 to 12% of expenditures, and now they're up to 12 to 15%. So even no matter which of those benchmarks that are out there, you are a little bit below that right now. Page 15 shows your revenues and expenditures in these various funds. You did have a modest increase in the general fund balance, $152,000. You did have a sizable increase in the capital projects fund, and that's because you had issued the bans for the school roof project. And sometimes you hear the state of Connecticut and you happen to have a large cash balance at your end, and then you'll spend it down, obviously. After those fund financial statements, there's a couple separate statements for the pension fund. This is for your Board of Ed non-certified employees. You are fully funded, which is unusual, but we are seeing that in a lot of town plans because of the remarkable investment gains from July 20 to June 21. Normally the funding level is about 75%, which I think is the national average, the low to mid 70s. But we are seeing that places were just doing their normally recommended actuarial contributions, but this huge bounce in investments made them close to funded or fully funded in your case. So we reference here page 62, which is deep into the notes of the financials, and there's a schedule in there that shows the changes in those actuarially computed liabilities and assets. And we don't do those. We get those reports from the actuaries, and then we incorporate it into your financial statements. So I'm going to cover this slide, and then I'm going to ask Marshall to take over. Otherwise, I will just talk through the whole thing. And I'll take this slide, even though this is the one that Marshall started to put into the presentations. It just shows a kind of a trend in your in your fund balances, 3-year trend going left to right, 19 to 21. There was a drop in 19 to 20. I think that you had a budgeted use of surplus. So that was actually a planned decrease in your fund balance. And then from 20 to 21, you did have, as I mentioned, a modest increase in your fund balance. So it's coming back up. You have different categories: unassigned, assigned, and restricted. Assigned is what you have designated internally. And usually that's what when you're taking fund balance to balance the next year's budget. That's the most common assigned fund balance. Restricted is from an external source, and usually it's a grant project or donated funds for which there's a specific purpose that you cannot change. So most people do not have very many restricted funds in their general fund. And the biggest component is unassigned, just like you have here. So Marshall, do you want to take over from here?
So continuing on the financial reports, these are going to be the note disclosures. On page 34, we can see that there's a pay down, continuation of the GEO bonds, roughly about 800,000. There's also the, I think it's called the Clearwater Fund loan that's also still being paid down. There was a change in assumption for the net pension liabilities. So that does have a increase of 800,000, but it's all based on actuarial reports. Page 35 is the future debt payments. It's just reference basically a continuation of down payments for those bonds, other debts the town has. Then on page 39, we get into the pension and retirement plans. These are the TRB plans, teacher retirements, basically associated with the liability. Though the town might have a liability of 34 million, the town at this point is not currently responsible for any of it. Though we like to report that the state for the current year did contribute 2 million of that. There has been talk about towns, more wealthier towns and stuff like that, possibly having to start contribute portions of contributions to this. I believe it would be like 10% of the state contribution. So we just like to reference what the state is contributing to give some reference to what could possibly happen in the future as a liability for the town. But as of now, there's nothing being said towards that. So the other side of it is the OPEB liability for TRB. I believe that's more of like the health care side versus the pension. That for liability for the town is 5 million. The state contributed for your portion 53,000. Yet again, that could also, like I said, be a point of liability possibly in the future. I want to say the percentage that they were throwing around was 10%. So that could be a liability for that side of 5,000 for the town, but that's still up in the air. I don't think anything has been discussed or decided yet, as of yet. Going down to page 75, this is our tax collectors report. It shows the current levy, the outstanding receivables, basically the collections of the town's revenues for taxes. The outstanding tax receivable balance was about 1.1 million as of the end of the fiscal year, which equates to about 6.6% of the current levy. Generally in towns, we like to see, I think like an average is between 2% and 8%. So you guys are in a good range. I believe last year was 6.4, so it did increase very little, but we definitely just don't want to ever see that number continue to increase. It's just based on, you know, collection efforts, everything for the town, economic situations can always change that, but there can always be considerations once we go over 8% of possible different testings we like to go into, just to kind of see what's going on. But like I said, you're in the good range of 2 to 8%, so that's a healthy range. And next slide.
Quick question, if we could, before we move on to the next slide.
Yeah, of course.
On page, it's Rob Werge, on page 39, you referenced the state contribution of 2.2 million. And that at this point, there's not a 10%.
Yeah, no, as of
what would trigger that 10%? And how far in advance would we perhaps know about it?
So that's just every now and then when they talk about balancing the budget at the state level, they talk about getting the towns on the hook for a portion of this. The latest, probably your selectmen are the ones who are most in tune with any discussions on that. The most current version of that, as Marshall was saying, is there was some discussion of at the state level of making what they consider the more wealthy towns responsible for kicking into paying in and picking up, instead of the state paying all of the contributions to the plan, making the more wealthier towns kick in. And I really can't give you a definition of what wealthier is, but so it's just discussion. A few years ago, I think they even talked about the towns picking up 25%. And everybody says that seems to be very unlikely, but it keeps coming up. So that's why we throw out this, we point these areas out so you can just get an idea of what the impact would be when they discuss it.
Okay, thank you. It's very helpful.
Okay, so next we would go into the state and federal single audits. These are the individual audits outside of the audit that you guys have as well. The other two audits you guys should have. The first one would be the state single audit. This is the requirements by the state for our testing. And we like to basically talk about, well, you have to list all the expenditures related to state assistance. For you guys, for the fiscal year was about 9.3 million. Of that is basically BOE expenditures with excess cost and education cost sharing, which makes up the 7.8 million of it. That 7.8 is really what makes up that testing that Chris was talking about for the EFS testing. That's possibly why it's becoming more in depth with the testing, is because it is a large portion of what state assistance you guys do receive. So that could be part of the increase of our work and BOE's work, but at the same time, we do test parts of it within just a normal audit, but that I just wanted to bring up, that could be the consideration of why there's continuous extra work that they keep adding onto it. For the state single audit this year, the major programs tested was the emergency relief funds and the coronavirus funds. Oh, sorry, that's the federal, my bad. Let me go to the state. The state was, I'm ahead of myself. The state.
While you're looking, I was going to say, that's a good point. When we do the state single audit, they have certain education grants. They consider them to be exempt from the state single audit. The reason they're exempt is because they have their own special testing, not defined by OPM, but defined by Department of Ed. So,
yeah. So for the state single audit testing, we did the Town Aid Road testing, early care and education testing, Alliance District General Improvements Grants that you guys received, and the Brownfield Remediation and Development Grants. We went through them. We didn't find any compliance issues with them. And basically, no problems. One of the issues that we had to list in the prior audit was the budgetary compliance. Last year, it was dealing with the education BOE line. They did have an overage that was higher than the Connecticut state statute. Because it's significant, it does get listed within the audit. But you can see in this year, both in the state and federal, it does say that that was corrected. But once we get to the management comment or management letter, there is still a finding related to the budget that I will talk about a little bit later. But for state testing wise, there was no issues, no compliance findings or anything to be reported. For the federal, you guys received 1.7 million of federal funding. What makes up a large portion of that is the school nutrition and other educated related items. There's special ed, there's all the Title II, Title III, Title IV, COVID relief funding. That kind of just makes up a majority of it. Most of it is for federal for this year was a lot of federal. Oh, I think I lost my presentation. A lot of it was education. For the identified major programs that we did test, I did say before was the coronavirus relief funds and the basically ESSER funds, the education and secondary emergency relief funds. There was no compliance findings or issues that we found during our testing. And like I said, same with the state, there was no issues, and the only issue that was considered significant last year was corrected. I am curious if we lost Chris, because I can pull it up hopefully on my screen. Looks like we did lose Chris, so let's see if I can screen share.
Chris is coming back in.
Okay. I'll just continue while he starts coming back. So after the state and federal single audits, we like to go over the management letter and verbal comments that we came upon during the auditing testing. The first one is dealing with payroll. For the town side, we're just looking for payroll approval during the steps of completion of payroll. Once it gets submitted through Paula and Orla, we would like to have just somebody review it. Maybe when it comes, when it's submitted in, just to make sure everything is in good order. Just a common separation of duties mixed with approval and management steps that just should be needed. The other problem with payroll that we found was for the Board of Education. It had to deal with COVID timing, but it's also just seemed to be a little lax in controls, was time cards and contract agreements that the BOE had with hourly and I want to say subs, interns, not interns, but people that were coming in very fast to cover positions. There was discussion in meetings, it sounded like, that they had stating maybe a rate of pay, but they didn't really keep documentation for it, which we found was, something they definitely should have done. If, you're agreeing to pay somebody $150 a day while they're there, and there's no proof, no sign or anything like that, the guy could argue $200, just, it was a little lax. I understand there was COVID, there was other issues. They did have approval for the rates with meetings, but it just seemed a little lax. So we definitely talked to Bob about it to make sure that, going forward, that there is definitely really good documentation regarding it. Next, student activity accounts. There has been a lax of approvals on those, which are done typically through the schools. Bob was mentioning, if he could always strengthen it, the procedures with it if it came through his office, but then it's difficult to work with the schools and getting all these invoices coming through him. So usually we ask the principal or superintendent on staff to, sign off on these invoices that are going through student activities, because though it might be a small portion of the BOE, he still is, it's the students' funding that they put together, and there should be good records of where that money is going, so it's not being spent inappropriately, and it's for the, for the students. So we did request again that the principal or finance director or whoever can review those invoices before they are paid out, just for appropriateness and accuracy is the main concerns for us. Next would be the bank reconciliations, another just review step. The first year we came in here, we did find a few journal entry issues with the bank recs. A couple journal entries were either done or needed to be done after the bank reconciliation was done, which should then be reprinted, re-reviewed, and made sure it's correct. This year, there wasn't issues that we found while reviewing the bank reconciliations, but there still was no physical signs of approval that somebody else besides the preparer was reviewing them. So I believe Paula reviews it in Munis, Orla finishes the bank rec or does a comparison in Excel, and that's kind of where it was ended. Which we would like the next step of maybe the first selectman, or if that procedure moved down to maybe Paula doing it completely and Orla reviewing it in that sense, or the person in Orla's position reviews it to make sure it's accurate and there's no issues with it. Next is the budget compliance. This was what I was referring to, that it went from significant deficiency being in the state and federal audits. Now, there was I don't know if it was a budgeting slip up, there was possibly an error or whatever happened. It had to deal with debt payments for the GEO bond, I believe that's the one I think it was for. Budgeting year to year, there should have been like a $30,000 increase year over year, just based on the amount of principal that's being paid and everything like that. And it seemed that the same number was used from the prior year. I think it was 750,000. It's supposed to be, let's say 775, which caused an overage in the debt service by, I think it was like $20,091. Though it doesn't seem as big of a deal with the budget, it is a part of the Connecticut statute that you aren't allowed to spend more than 20,000 without approval of the town. So it wasn't like you guys were overspending that position. It just seems like it was a lapse or error that happened during the budgeting process. So that's why it still wants to be, mentioned, but it doesn't have to be significant because it wasn't, in a sense, intentional or a bigger issue or significant in that sense. The last one for management letter level is the fixed asset listing. When we first came here, the fixed asset listing didn't have any disposals, which we, every town should have disposals. It shows just a little bit of, lax or weakness within that listing, whether people aren't reviewing it on each department level, or the finance director typically do it at the end of the year. They might, let's say, majority of towns, they might ask each department, the BOE, if they have a fire department, just ask them, are these assets still here? Did you sell any of them? And what new ones you got? The additions seemed fine, but it was the disposals that had us a little bit worried. For this fiscal year, there was some missing entries related to depreciation. So we did fix those, but it was just kind of yet again lacks or weakness related to the fixed assets or to controls that we wanted to address. And that is it for the management letter. The only verbal comment that we have, which deals with the certificate of corrections. We mentioned it in the first year. It seemed like it was being corrected, but it is just because of the timing when we came in here in the first year, it kind of flowed into the fiscal year. We only saw, so basically the first year there was 0 approvals for the certificate of corrections. We like to see one person creating them, one person reviewing them, because that person in that position that wants to make a certificate of correction could technically write off anything they want if no one's being approved. But obviously there's 2 people in that department. The assessor, agreed with it. He was fine with it. And we got from 0% to 50% approvals. The rest of them were just prior to the our comment towards the management letter. So, or the management comment. So we believe next year it's not going to be a finding or an issue. And that was it for management comments that we had. And that really is it. If you guys have additional questions for us, we're here so we can answer anything for you.
Okay, Chris and Marshall, thank you for that. I didn't mention at the beginning that we had you up first, so you didn't have to participate in the entire meeting. But at this point, we'll open it up to any questions from Board of Finance members.
Things I'd like to suggest, one, I'd like to Bob and all of us see here. Maybe if they have any comments on what presented would be something that we should allow or request. And the second question I had was the conditions you stated in your management letter, are these issues that have just occurred last year, or they were in existence before and we're just finding them now, or raising them now?
So I can go back to last year's management comment to see what was listed on them. The fixed asset listing was a verbal last year. Then we raised it to a management letter because it went from, a little bit of concern related to the disposals lack there to actual missing items for depreciation. So we just felt that should be addressed. It just, it didn't get better. So then we figured it should be addressed as a management comment. I believe the payroll, if that wasn't addressed last year, that I think it was. I think it was addressed last year for approvals, and the bank reconciliations, that was last year as well. Student activities might have been verbal, because we did see a portion of them being having approval on them, but it wasn't enough. So we mentioned it. Bob agreed with it. He said it's difficult with the schools, with the principals to actually sign off on these. Either they're just not being willing to, or he did mention that, he could always bring it into his department, but it was going to be difficult taking that over, additional, procedures, stuff like that. But it really shouldn't be too difficult to have the principal just initial the invoices just for accuracy and, appropriateness. It's not anything crazy. Most of these invoices, I would assume they probably have less than, 50 to 100 invoices a year. I'm sure they see more paperwork than that. The budget compliance, that was a certificate deficiency unrelated to the same event to last year. The last year was the BOE over expended. This year it was just a missed budget opportunity that caused it. I mean, you could have spent, I think it was $20,000 and let's say $90. If you spent $89 less by accident, you would have been under the 20,000 and this wouldn't even been an issue. So, yeah, so I think a lot of these actually were from the prior year. We, I'd say the payroll, half of it was the BOE, possibly related only to COVID issues. The approval was something we requested, but it didn't seem to come through. The bank reconciliations, we were concerned with actual errors and adjustments. This year it was no errors, it was just still the lack of review. So I would say a lot of them were repeats, but in different ways.
Yeah,
So
it's like some of them were repeats, but with a lesser emphasis, they were less significant, and others were raised a little bit.
Thank you. Any other finance questions?
We have one more, somebody else has a question, which is, are there lessons you've learned from other towns or seen in other towns that we could use to help ourselves? Things that they're doing that maybe we should do, or they're just things that we might learn from your experience with other towns.
In that sense, not really off the top of my head, but I know that you guys are shifting into looking for finance director. You guys do have a consultant, I believe, in now. I know there's been talk about merging the BOE and the BOS into one finance director, possibly with.
Marshall, not to cut you off, we actually did the merging, and we've found a new finance director for that role, so, and he's here with us, so we're pretty far along that path.
Yeah,
I'll be in touch, Marshall.
I was thinking along the same line of, it seems like towns are having more and more difficulty, and whether it's stress or just reconciling between the town side and the school side. And I think part of it is both sides have become more complicated as the years go by. And we have a lot of it's very common, and you actually didn't have it. We have a very common finding that the towns and the Board of Ed don't reconcile to each other. The Board of Ed money comes out of the town general fund, and then the Board of Ed should be reporting, an expenditure equivalent to what they drew from the town. So, that's something I would say we see in a lot of towns, and the fact that you are doing some consolidation of that is probably going to help you, because towns seem to be getting, worse and worse in that area.
The only question I know, how does that affect having one finance director, the bank reconciliation review? Will that have an effect on that or no? I mean, I know you said that Paula and Orla work together, but it wasn't enough to have somebody else check over.
Well, I think it was, though, that and I think Marshall said this, that Orla was doing the reconciliation, and one of what Marshall was saying is perhaps have Paula do the reconciliation and have the finance director review it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? I had two quick ones. One, I just want to clarify that on the budget compliance area, that started with an error out of the gate, right? And if I'm correct here, what you're calling out is not the fact that the baseline was wrong. The fact that it was overexpended by more than the allowable amount.
Correct.
It's exceeding the 20,000. Okay.
Yeah, you originally budgeted, it was, I think, the GEO bond related. You budgeted 750,000, but it should have actually increased, because that's how payments have been increasing. That's the set way it was, and it seemed like it just was repeated at the same rate, which just barely caused you to be over that state statute limitation.
Got it. No,
Yeah,
that makes
you
sense.
paid the scheduled amount.
Right. Understood. I just wanted to be certain, because things like the error that happened that got the base wrong, it should have been 780 or 750. That could always happen again. I mean, to put a corrective action that we're going to review it could still happen. I think what we missed was the excess of 20,000. The second question was around the assets. Um, and you'd mentioned this was, we know this was on last year. There was a lot of work, maybe late in the year. I know Orla spent a lot of time on it. Is it that we just didn't make it in time, or is it that the quality of that work wasn't sufficient? Meaning, have you seen the
So
recent fixed assets, and is that adequate for what we need moving forward?
So yeah, she did go through the listing. She did dispose of a lot of the old assets that shouldn't be on the listing anymore. That seems sufficient in that sense. The error that we caught was related to a journal entry for capital leases that you guys have. She had one that was in it was timing of the payment, basically. She should have pulled back that expenditure into the fiscal year. But she just had it written in the new fiscal year. So we just had to adjust an invoice basically into the prior year. That wasn't as concerning to us, but in a sense, with the disposals being an issue in the first year and then seeing this, also with the timing of fixed assets, we ran into that. There was a little bit of difficulty. I know Orla was working with it, but typical of fixed asset listing, we would request or recommend getting to the auditors within a month of field work. We were out there in October. She was continually working on them in November, December. So we did get them in a late timing as well.
We know the timing could have been quicker, but my question is, even though it was later than it should have been, was the quality of it appropriate? Was it at the level that we need? Because it's hard to manage the disposal if you don't have a fixed asset register baseline correct to begin with. So what you saw, is that a good body of work for us to feel comfortable moving forward that we can manage off of that list?
Our current procedure is adequate.
So
I think
the
recommendation, that's an area we're going to continue to look at. There were corrections made. We can't say at this point that there aren't more corrections necessary. We'll keep looking at it.
Yeah, so the recommendation I gave was, during, even at right now, you guys could hand out the departmental listing to each department, the BOE, like a fire department, town, garage, and just ask them what assets are on that listing under their department are still there. I don't know if Orla actually did that. I know she disposed of assets, so she did go through it. Maybe she did request of people. Maybe she did do all this. So it did seem sufficient because we did see disposals coming off. But typically we would like to see, or it should happen, is at some point of the year, it could be the end of the year, beginning of the year, hand that listing to those departments, ask them, are these assets still here? That's usually why it happens at the end of the year. Are these assets gone? Did you get new assets to make sure that we match with what we're adding to the fixed asset listing? So that those are kind of the best procedures that you guys can have for that listing. So,
Okay.
yep.
I think maybe we could take it offline as a separate item for us. If you do it at the end of the year, and then all these things have happened all year long, I feel we can work with Bill on it, that we have a process, written process for how to dispose of assets. At the time it's disposed, you follow that process and that's recorded. No, we're not catching up at the end of the year. We could take it. You said you're going to continue to look at it. It's going to potentially come up again next year. It's the second year I've been on it, so it's one that we need to continue. I didn't mean to take up so much time on that topic. Steve had a final question, which I also had, which is any final feedback for us in terms of how we did as an organization, as a management group, working with you?
Well, I'm glad to hear that you have a new finance director, because my concern was going to be that you went for a period without that, without enough staffing, enough resources in the finance department. So I'm people tend, if you have a period of time where you don't have enough resources, the basics get done, but then the other stuff doesn't get done, and then it really takes a long time to recover. So I'm glad to hear you have someone. The timeline of this audit We were waiting on various things for both the town side and the Board of Ed side, that we could have shortened the timeline and issued faster. I know that your finance director had to be away, some of it was unexpected, and she planned to still have it done quickly, and she was very optimistic, and I thought it was going to be a tough battle for her, just because she had to miss some time, and I think that did kind of play out during the audit timeline. So it was slower than we had hoped for. We did talk to the first selectman's office, and we would update her periodically as to where we were, so that everyone was kind of on the same page as to how it was going.
Okay, thank you very much. Sure.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Chris. Hi, Marshall. It's Orla here. First time I've been back since I left. So I just wanted to let you guys know it was wonderful to work with you both and your team. And I do want to congratulate Bill on his position taken over as finance director. I think the town's going to be in great hands with him and Guy, who will be helping over the next few months, and also congratulate Bob on his new position. In relation to the challenges that have occurred, I think Guy's done a lot of work over the last month or so since he's been here, and I've been working with him as much as I can. It's definitely going to be a challenging time. I think one of the concerns that we all have within this town is that kind of separation between Board of Ed and the school, and I think combining those positions here is really going to help that. And the other thing I'm seeing is, because obviously, I'm my experiences are now in different municipalities, is you talked about the challenge between trying to match school and Board of Ed. Well, we have the great advantage of sharing the system here. So I think any hurdles or any roadblocks that prevent our systems from merging together, we really no reason to have those separations anymore. So, and I think under Bill he's going to be able to knit those two groups together very, very well. So I look forward to seeing that happen. Obviously, I still live in town, so I'm going to be monitoring how things are going. So in relation to the finance, the fixed assets, gosh, that was such a challenge. But I had a conversation with Guy last night about our fixed assets, and Marshall had shared with me the first year. One of the challenges we have, and this is how this entry got missed, this journal entry got missed this year, is we have an add-on in Munis for fixed assets. It just doesn't work. It's error ridden and it's very manual. And Marshall had suggested a new software package, and I'll share that information with Bill and Guy because I think it's worthwhile implementing it this year. Marshall, I think you mentioned that the software package is CS fixed assets or something, right?
Yeah, fixed assets TS is what we use. It's it's way better than doing Excel spreadsheets, depending on what you guys use for software or what other softwares you guys run into. We find it very capable, very easy to use. So if you guys are finding an issue on the software side or reporting side, while recording all this information, it is a software we have recommended to towns to use. So that's.
I think that would be definitely a good idea. The other side of the fixed assets is trying to keep current. So unfortunately, the nature of fixed assets in a modified accrual environment is you only need it at year end. And ideally, in another type of environment where you're recording depreciation on a monthly basis, yes, it's important to keep it current. But it's been way down the priority list for so long that disposals were not carried out in Munis long before I came along. I think we went back quite a few years and we didn't find any disposals. So in relation to the process with regards to keeping it current, now that we have an established asset summary, Paula did a really good job, and I wanted Bill to hear this. Paula did a really good job last year when I was in Ireland the first time with regards to going department by department, going asset by asset. And that's how we were able to dispose all of those assets within the fixed asset schedule because she spent a huge amount of time on it. That might be something, might be a good idea to do this, to do this year because she's already familiar with it. But we did make it very clear with department heads that the onus is on them to notify us if an asset is retiring. We will know if an asset is being disposed of, especially if there's a sale of disposal. But if it's being retired, we're not going to know unless they notify. So, but it's definitely worthwhile making those changes. But I'm actually really glad that the auditors brought it to our attention last year because I think I typically would always say, oh, it's way down the priority list. Fixed assets to me was way down the priority list because we were modified accrual and because we carry out cash basis on it. So they were just my comments, but I wish everybody best of luck. It's nice to be back here to be part of this presentation, and I think the town's in good hands.
Thank you, Orla. Okay, thank you, Marshall and Chris. Appreciate
you.
all your work.
The last time we got a fixed asset report, was, January 20th, I think was when you
Yeah, that's
sent a new list out.
That's the new list as of June 30th, 2020.
Josh?
Okay.
Could I ask one question?
Yes.
Chris and Marshall, do you have any guidance for us as to materiality, as to what should go on a fixed asset list in a town of our size and the things that we may use to kind of cut down the size and the complication of this?
Yeah, there can be a lot of judgment. There's a lot of right answers. But maybe one way of keeping down the volume of items, but still maintaining the dollars is having two thresholds, perhaps a $5,000 threshold or so for, or even 10 for equipment, and then a higher one for infrastructure and even maybe buildings. So sometimes people have a dual threshold, let's say 10 for equipment and 50 or 75 for buildings and roads. And that way you can keep down on the number, but still capture the vast majority of the dollars. Depreciation is an estimate. There's some flexibility allowed.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, but based on
Okay,
what's in your
Alright.
audit as well, you guys do state estimates of 5,000 or more. So that's, that was management's decision. You guys can always, like he said, change it because it's based on estimates. But the way it sits from your guys' standpoint, you guys do recommend 5,000 or more to be listed as an asset.
okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
I want to just make sure that Dottie, it was loud. I thought she was in the room over my shoulder. I want to make sure Dottie heard early on that 5 out of the 6 of us were here. Aaron was not here when we opened, but I noticed that he has joined via Zoom. So all 6 of us are here now. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda, approval of minutes from the March 17th meeting. Dave made the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Larry. Is there any discussion on those minutes?
One minor change, I think paragraph 5, Gentys is not retiring, he's moving on.
Okay. Any other discussion or corrections to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, we'll, all in favor of approving the minutes with the adjustment that Steve made, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Aaron. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, that passes. The next item 4 is correspondence. I had the audit reports that we received last Thursday. Have anything else listed? Did anyone have any other correspondence? Okay, moving on to item 5, citizens' comments. Are there any citizens' comments at this time? Moving online, is there anyone online that's raised their hand or would like to make a comment? Any citizens online?
John Rice, if I may.
Yes, John, please state your name and address.
John Rice, 39 East Thompson Road. I just want to make a comment that when reviewing tonight's school budget and future scrutiny of that budget, I'd like to have suggest that you attend one of the presentations of Beauty and the Beast being held this weekend at the school. And to see what our tax dollars are doing for the arts at the school, open your eyes as to what the kids are really doing with the funds that we're providing them. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other citizens' comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 6, Selectmen's update for Selectman Amy St. Ange.
Good evening, gentlemen. So just to start off, yes, I bought my Beauty and the Beast tickets for tomorrow night. Everybody should buy the tickets. I'm looking forward to the production. It was something that was canceled due to COVID, and I had my tickets then. So I'm really looking forward to it. I know it's going to be a fantastic show. I have a lot of things that I can share, but I'm going to keep it pretty short because I know we want to get into the budget workshop. Back on March 22nd of 2021, there was a Turtle Lot Trust meeting where we talked about 65 Main. In the end, there was a vote 4-3. I was one of the losers, because I was one of the dissenting votes. But the trust had kind of challenged Hero Penn, our Director of Planning and Development, to search out a grant to renovate the 65 Main building. We are the only town in Eastern Connecticut that received federal infrastructure money directly from our United States Senators Blumenthal and Murphy, $240,000, which is the expected cost of the entire project. And she was challenged to at least come up with half of that project. So I really applaud her efforts. It's exciting. We have a lot of grants coming our way right now. We had the $2 million brownfield grant that we were given. I think I probably already told you about that. That's going to be for the remediation at environmental cleanup at 929 Mill. So excited that that's going to finally get underway this spring into summer. We also received our authorization to advertise, so we can finally move forward with the Route 12 sidewalk project, and that's going to go from Route 200 all the way to Rawson Ave, 7,400 feet of concrete sidewalk with granite curving, and some other nice design elements. Additionally, one of the first things on the docket for our Public Works Department is going to be that Blaine Road bump out. As we know, the intersection of Blaine Road and Route 12 is just a giant wide open mess. Nobody knows where to pull out or where to go in. So what we're going to be creating is a defined intersection. Additionally, we were able to secure some additional grant funding, which is going to cover the cost of the parklet and the low density, the low impact development of a retention area, and to help fund the parklet and the creation of that. So a lot of good things going on. Some fun stuff. Bluebird boxes are now available in the conservation department. They're free to residents. So just contact the conservation office and you can pick up your Bluebird box. Help to increase that population. Recreation has the Easter extravaganza on April 9th. That's going to be at 2 p.m. The hunt will begin on the Common. April roadside cleanup beginning April 1st. It's in its 20th year, and we are grateful to Norma O'Leary, who champions that cause every year. Bags are available in our recreation department, and the dumpster will be at the town garage starting April 1st, so you can bring the trash directly there. And lastly, we had the great news at the last meeting that Bill Steglitz had taken the position. I have an additional piece of news. We have a new public works director. So super excited about that. His name is Troy Spizzato. He has a very intensive background in road construction. He also has an extensive background as an assistant public works director and a public works director. He's currently with the town of Willington, but his family, his grandparents are the Ravenels. They've since passed, but he grew up hanging out at their home on Ravenel Road, and he really wanted to come back to Thompson and work here. He's going to be an exciting addition, and I just can't wait to introduce him to all of you. He starts on April 18th. He'll be coming in on Tuesday to do all of his onboarding. And then we'll be heading over to the garage so he can meet his staff and his assistant and check out the facility. So we're excited to have him on board. I can't wait for him to start. So, any questions?
Questions?
Okay,
Thank you, Anna.
thanks.
Great update. School district update, Superintendent Melinda Smith.
Good evening, everyone, and it really is all about beauty and the Beast for the next couple of days, but, I want to share that, the joy that the students are experiencing, participating in an activity that, seems normal to them, right? They're just having a great time with it all, and they've been practicing for 4 months. And it's been a lot of fun. It's crunch time. And what I really appreciate working in Thompson is the idea that just about everybody has their hand in this production somehow. So it truly is a community event. And it's bringing a lot of people together, and people are happy around that. And so it's nice to see. So I'm really looking forward to a community event for the weekend. Having said that, I want to thank Mr. Rice for that plug, but also thanking Mr. Rice and the building committee for overseeing many projects that are impacting the school department. The roof project, more recently, an RFP has been drafted and will be going out soon for an HVAC assessment. And that assessment is being funded through ESSER and OPER money. But we need to have an assessment of the ventilation system and see if there are any corrections that we need to make, because, we're not out of the woods with this pandemic, and God forbid another one is on its heels. So we believe that a lot of the mitigation strategies that we put in place, the most important one during COVID was that we were running the vent system, and Bill Birch is on, we were running that at max capacity this whole time. And we know that that had to contribute to some of the reasons why we were in district most of the time, 5 full days. So we want to make sure that that's running in optimum condition. And so we're looking forward to having that assessment done. And so then we have been looking at we have revived the local prevention council. We received a mini grant from CIRAC that we're using to combat vaping and other types of behavior activities in the school. But the LPC, Amy serves on that council as well. And one of the things that came out is about drug prevention and having engaged youth. And so we are really researching the idea around developing a Thompson Youth Commission. And we've been invited out to my former district to see how that youth commission runs. And the mayor and our first selectman will get to meet, but it is a community-based program. But we're pretty excited to see about how that runs. And could we bring a youth commission here to Thompson? So we've been putting a lot of time and effort around getting that organized. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think that's about it for now. And, if you haven't bought your tickets yet, they are still available for all 3 shows.
Any questions for the superintendent? Thank you, Melinda. Okay, next up, Finance Department report. There's no name next to it. We have a number of finance people here. I hope someone can grab that one.
So we prepared your 7-month and 8-month reports submitted to you. Process was that I prepared drafts of these and ran them by Orland. She was nice enough to review them and add comments. Most of the comments were relating to these other sources here in the 7-month where you had a loan refinancing. And as a newcomer coming in, that was the thing that was the least obvious to me looking at it. Also, Rainey is here, but I think the general comment is we feel that revenues are pretty good. They're coming in strong. We had one little concern about building permits, but we feel like now, even though they may have been slightly over budgeted at 140, we feel pretty good that they're going to come in around 120 or so, somewhere in that area. So, those are the comments I have on these. Orla would be able to give you more detail about the refinancing if you had any questions on that. Otherwise, I think, the reports will speak for themselves, and, there is, pretty clear. I think we've got that excess, special education grant, cost reimbursement that's, just pending your approval, and then that should go into the due from fund, and that won't appear, I assume, as a revenue here anymore,
No,
correct?
it'll be
So
reimbursed.
there's a $300,000 item in the 8-month report that is just temporarily where it is, pending your approval to transfer that over to the Board of Education. So we could open up to any questions we have.
Sorry, Guy, that's noted on the 8-month report.
Yes, it's noted in the state and federal grants, second section of page 1, grants received in February include the special education excess cost reimbursement. Bob had prepared a pretty detailed justification of the expenditures, and Orla was looking for that information and received it, and I believe now,
Yeah, I did review it.
Yeah,
It's fine. It's all
fine.
set to. And I don't believe we have to get approval from the Board of Finance to do the reimbursement. But with regards to the procedures we put in place a number of fiscal years ago, the requirement was to provide that document to the treasurer of finance, town finance director's office, and in turn review. Dave, did you have a comment? Are you all set? Oh, okay. So I think at this stage,
it's just a matter of a
you can
journal
make a
entry.
journal entry,
Okay,
and the backup to that journal entry will be the report that Bob provided.
and we seem to be working well with the due froms. They seem to be going well, so I think we're okay there. All right, so we'll do that the same way we've done them in the
Yeah,
past.
if it's approved, then I can make it tomorrow, and I'll send it.
I don't think it needs approval.
It doesn't need approval.
I guess that's, I don't know the history of it, but.
No,
if
that's fine. It's a requirement by the treasurer's office to review it, which in turn Bob provided it to the treasurer's office / town finance office.
Would that be shared with us?
Yes, Guy, you could share that with the Board of Finance.
Do
members.
you want us, do you want it shared subsequent to us making the transfer, or do you want to look at it next week for us?
If it's all done, I think at least the summary should be shared with us.
So it just breaks down the number of different cases and the dollars, the budgets for each individual case, but there's no other information.
Essentially, the reimbursement is, there's a baseline, they multiply your baseline, per pupil expenditure times 4.5. So that's your baseline here in this district, it's $92,000. Anything that's spent above that amount is, this year it's 80% reimbursable. And the percentage went up a little bit because the baseline went up. And it happened in what it recently is 3 years ago, the reimbursement rate was 70%, but it was at $82,000. So the reimbursement rate is that they send out 75% in February. We make additional adjustments, and then they send the rest of the 25% that's left in the end of May. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you.
So I think your takeaway on that is you're seeing 300,000 there that won't be there on the next report.
Just moving forward, so we understand that we're without someone, and Guy, we appreciate you jumping in for the time with us and Bill coming on board. It's hard to speak for everyone. Certainly, it's difficult to review this live on the spot. So I think maybe for month 9, if we could have it at least a few days prior, we could all kind of comb through it. Maybe for now on our own, if we have any questions here, address them. Unless you have questions now, I haven't been able to digest it. Address 8 and 9. Other questions or comments? Thank you, Guy. Next up, Turtle Lot Fund update, Board of Trustees. The number of us here, including our chairman of the Board of Trustees. Tom, yes, please. We don't always have you here, so someone fills in. So
Full transparency, I always like to say that, Board of Education member, 14 years, president of the Lot Trust, member of the alumni committee. I think really appointed building. Yeah, so yeah, voluntold. So first off, congratulations, Amy and Pierre, on the grants I made. Task you, challenge and regarding the Turtle Lot Trust, we put a $250,000 placeholder on the budget for this coming year. We look back at years that we've had in the past and we felt that 250 was a good number, whether we use that or not. Depending upon some of the inputs that we make for the 1909 bill.
Oh.
Currently, the
Tom,
yeah.
I'm sorry, the mic's not picking you up.
Oh.
So come a little closer.
So currently, the window project is in its final phase. I have Bill Birch here too, in case you can keep me on track with this. There's been a little bit of a setback with the windows. There was a size difference on a few of the windows. So unfortunately, the way things are right now, it's supply and demand. It's about an 18 to 22 week extension till we get the replacement windows in. The good news is that through the debits and the credits and change orders and all that, we were able to have some sufficient funds where we can actually add on the masonry repair to the front of the building, which is greatly needed right now for one, insurance purposes, as well as I said in the beginning, safety. So once the windows come in, we will be repainting the windows so they are architecturally correct to the time period, which lo and behold, when the old wood was removed, it's actually beige, not brown. So we are going to paint them so they're aesthetically correct. We were outnumbered by our design firm, which are other members. Don't listen to the guys. So anyways, we're going back to beige, which is perfect. In addition to that, we are researching the ADA compliant accessibility ramps or lifts. They are not cheap, but we also want to make sure that they're aesthetically correct and do not take away from the beauty of the 1909 building and the Riscavage Auditorium. So we've looked at everything of blowing out a wall, coming into a closet, coming into the back area. We think we have it down now where it's kind of out by where the current elevator shaft is. You can come up through and come in through the back. And it will give great access for anybody that has obviously any disabilities and wants to enjoy that room for future presentations. We are also, let me just look here. We're in preliminary discussions with a AV sound engineer company because that room is beautiful, but as a musician, it's horrible. The acoustics are phenomenal if you want to do a private showing or private musical for yourself. But when you bring a bunch of people in there, the acoustics are just, they reverberate off of everything because there's no sound barriers. So we are looking at ways that we can improve the sound quality so we can have meetings up there. We can do performances and there'll be no impairments from obviously the reverberation of sound. That again does not come cheap, so we have it out to bid, looking at all opportunities. We've had, bids that go all the way up to $73,000. So obviously, we're not going to spend money in a frivolous manner. We will do the proper RFPs and get this looked at appropriately. I already talked about the masonry. Talked about our obligations where we have kept the fund balance where it needs to be. Which is a minimum of 2.3 million. Right now it sits, I think, 2.76. Yeah, who knows what it is right now with the way things are going. We are a little concerned. Well, actually, concern is probably a heavy word. We're curious as to the way that the fund has been managed over the years through our current investment group. Not to say that they're doing anything wrong. They have strict guidelines from what we've asked them to do, which is a very conservative manner. We are going to develop an RFP. We're in the final stages of that. Kathleen, myself, and Rob have taken the first cracks at it. We'll then send it off to the rest of the board for approval. And we want to submit that out to some other advisor group. One of the points of interest on there is the way that they charge the service charges based on their cost-based analysis. It just seems very high. I think right now it's about 1.25. And I just know from other investment groups that there's elevated stages where you start at the first 500,000 is one rate, and then it escalates, it de-escalates as you go up in value. So we just want to, it's been 7 or 8 years, I think, since the fund went out for an RFP, and we just want to make sure that we're in line. Any questions from the board or? Anybody? Yes, it's part of, right, I was just gonna say.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Questions? Thank you, Tom.
One last thing, buy your Beauty and the Beast ticket.
We have ours.
Okay, so now we'll move into budget workshop. 8:15. We're going to start with the school today. Understanding is that we have Bob tonight and next Thursday evening. And, we have Bob. Hold the board of that up in the process. Thank you. I think we could all have the, should all have the
It's not opening up.
Uh,
fiscal 2023 proposed spending plan.
Found a problem with the content.
Okay,
Well, I
Could you try to send me the file again? Only because since then I've gotten some emails in.
would have gotten it tonight.
One more time.
Presentation.
Presentation.
I didn't even know board.
just coming back to me on that.
Oh,
Okay, so
Gonna try, I just, mine went through. Didn't show up for me.
Well, I can speak for my, if they could see it, yes, it would be more impactful. I don't know.
could you,
you're looking to put this up?
Not at all.
No.
the only other option is for someone to just log into the Zoom link. And then you could share from your device.
Can we just back up for a minute? I want to understand what we're sharing. We have two documents from the Board of Health. Presentation for presentation night. We have detailed by department. Is there something else that we're looking to share tonight?
Share a couple of slides from the presentation that I just want.
So you guys have those?
Statement before you get into the workshop. Right. So I guess the first one that you should look at in the presentation is the slide that has the pillars of the portrait of a graduate. So that is slide number 5. And the reason why that's important for you to take a look at is that I just want to remind the Board of Finance that this is my 5th budget presentation. So, I've sat through the whole budget procedures 5 years. I understand the challenges that the town of Thompson has when it comes to financing both things on the town side and on the Board of Ed side. However, when I came into the district, it was very clear that there were major deficiencies in staffing. There were deficiencies in our special ed program, the way we support students, and some of the creative ways that the Board of Ed has managed to shift positions around. is basically cutting positions within and making movement. That hasn't been best practice, but there have been areas that we had to address. And so we would cut positions in one place to make sure that we had proper special education staffing or reading staffing in other places. And so why the portrait of a graduate is so important is because it was the community of Thompson that made a decision that a Thompson graduate is independent, knowledgeable, and community connected. And because of that process, the spending plan that we put before the Board of Finance is directly linked and aligned to that portrait of a graduate. And we want to make sure that we graduate our students that meet those three pillars. So definitely the budget aligns to that. And then I want you to flip to slide, which is the most, keep going, Rob. Slide number 18. So, as a superintendent of schools, it has been extremely challenging to manage a budget that the increases never cover our expenses every year. And you can see that the increase never matches up with inflation, but it never covers the expenses that occur every year, that things go up every year. Healthcare goes up, fuel goes up. And so increases that the town has given us, and I know it goes through referendum, and I was here the year that it failed 5 times, but it never covered the basic fixed costs. And so what happened internally at the Board of Ed side is that means there's more reductions. I make more recommendations to the Board of Ed. These are the positions we cut. Right now, we are operating on a skeleton crew of administrators. There is 1 administrator at the high school. There are 2 at the middle school because it is middle school and there are a lot of issues in that age range. And then there's only 1 at the elementary school. We don't have a director of curriculum. I manage that under my umbrella. But what I want you to see is that the increases never really cover the expenses. And then on top of that, we've had to make other reductions. I know the members of the Board of Finance are well aware of this, but I want the community to know that year after year after year, those things happen. Oh yeah, you got it. So if you can go to the 3rd slide down. I'll have you come back to that one right there. I mean, it is really compelling there. And so right now, the Department of Education is reclassifying school districts. And they're looking at 17, 18, 18, 19 data. And as a result of that data, I anticipate that we might find ourselves in a very difficult position. And it's a consequence, it's a lot of variables, but one of the consequences of this type of percentage change year after year after year after year is that the reductions that we keep making are now negatively impacting our students. And so, you know, at the very least, we come before you to make sure that we are appropriately funded. Some of our budget drivers, if you can go to the previous slide, Amy. Oh, Bob, sorry, Bob. These are just our primary budget drivers that we talked to you about. You know, the fuel is anybody's guess what the fuel is going to cost us. Right now, we're paying $1.75 a gallon, and we projected $3 a gallon. Well, I went to the pump today and it was $5 a gallon. So I don't know how that's going to impact fuel overall. We're holding our breath and we're hoping that things are going to decrease, but we did put an increase for fuel. We did put an increase for our budget contract for our buses. And I also love to remind the community that the town no longer purchases or are responsible to purchase any buses for the school department. And in fact, there's a revenue side of things for the bus company leasing the bus yard. So I just want to keep that in mind that yes, there's a $45,000 increase in the buses, but that expense is assumed by the Board of Ed budget, but there are no other expenses for school transportation on the town side. So I want to keep everybody to remind that. Our health insurance is projected to go up 8%. So you can see what that increase is. And then our special ed tuition, and that's the final slide we'll take a look at, is increasing. And so when I presented my budget to the members of the Board of Education, I presented a budget in special education out of district tuition for the actual numbers of the students that are outplaced. What we see every year is that we budget on that number for the children that we know, but then more children come in. This is an extremely transient population, in and out. And we are seeing more and more students require out-of-district placement. I will say this, kudos, and I know he's on this webinar or Zoom meeting, Chris Jones, our special ed director, hadn't he come and put on-site programs in place, brought the Bradley program in, brought the transition program in. Those are cost avoidance programs that have positively impacted the town. But yet we are still seeing significant increases in special ed tuition. And Bob just told you about excess costs, right? They raised the baseline threshold. And so that keeps going up and up. And so we're getting reimbursed less and less. But we wanted to just remind you when you're going into this budget process, and if you could flip to that special ed slide, where we show you, out of district special education costs, what we budget, and then what happens at the end of the year. And not this year, but last year, we went over budget significantly in special education, and we showed a deficit, and the town had to cover that deficit. We know from the audit that we didn't spend funds last year of about $191,000, primarily because it was COVID. We didn't have middle school sports, no middle school sports transportation. Fuel was down because we weren't in session for 27 days. So there, we recouped some, not savings, but we didn't spend those funds. We do have a process in place that the Board of Finance did approve, so that we can set aside that $191,000 in case we go over in special education, or we have some capital needs. We've never had any cushion in this budget in the 5 years that I've been here. Something happens, it's a 911 catastrophe, or to cover it, or I have to cut something else. I have to, not fill a para position because yes, we need to repair something. So I just want you to know the challenges that have been happening over time since I become superintendent of schools. And I understand the challenges that you have. I've been through all your budget process. So I know that roads are crumbling and I know those need to be addressed. But the bottom line here is, I don't think there's any place else for me to make reductions in the Board of Ed budget. So I just want to say that moving forward, so that you can take that into consideration when you're going through your budget process. Thank you.
Melinda? With that, goes through the breakdown. I only have Bob tonight and next week, so I don't want to rush through it, but I'd like to try not to, I don't want to distract us from digging deeper. But I feel like we're starting to get stuck in a rut, so to speak. We could table certain items to get more broadly. I like to get through as many topics. Questions we have that aren't answered, Bob, after next week. Hopefully. Yeah, I'm not trying to say we shouldn't go in deep, we should, but we get stuck. That's why. Because we have some continuity with Bob being here tonight. We need to, I'm not saying we are or not.
We're not allowed items up.
No, but we could ask questions. We have, so if we had a question and we're spinning on, I'm just suggesting that if we're spinning on something, I'd rather not spin on it. We have a half an hour tonight. That's fine. So on first page, which is the overview page that was shown vision night, basically gives us the roll up by department. Questions, comments here, or do you want to?
Oh, yeah, sure, please.
Any questions or comments here, or we want to go right into the
Maybe
individual
you could have
departments?
the 22 spending plan is budget, Bob, or is that anticipated? It's budget. Budget, thank you. And do you know of any significant variances from the budget for the current year?
Well, special ed,
Okay, which will be,
the combined, where we're at right now is we're in the black by about $150,000 to $175,000. So, yeah. And I'm doing the month ending.
no, I don't mean to, a penny or anything, just a rough
But
idea.
The big overage right now is in special ed, it's about $700,000. I can pull up the check from last month.
No, you're saying you're giving us, picture of 159, I think you said,
Yeah,
in the black.
Yep.
And somewhere 700,000 in the red.
in special ed.
Now, the 159, does that include,
That includes the seven.
does it include the excess grant?
Yes. And the anticipated $100,000 of the balance is going to get paid next month.
Where does that leave us?
Yeah, help me out. So that at the end of the day, we expect to be $150,000 better than budget.
Yes. So far, I mean, I encumber everything, or as much as,
Including all
yeah, and
Today.
today. See what it's like on Saturday when I pick up this month.
and then, there's also tickets.
Yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, we're underspent in high school, middle school, I mean, and everything else. So that's why it's divided.
And basically, that's less than 1%.
Yeah,
Of your budget.
yeah.
Pretty minor and very close, my friend.
But as I said, I encumber everything, right down to FICA and.
I've spent many years on the other side in the book.
Yeah,
So we plan on freezing the budget, primarily because, we're close. And so any unnecessary spending by approval and then bills when comes on board.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the first page? Okay. We have Aaron. Aaron, do you have any comments on the first page? Keep in mind that you're with us remotely.
I'm got my hands on the steering wheel, so I'm not able to follow along, so that's okay.
Okay. The next one is really also a roll-up of sorts, a little more detail, not necessarily by department.
it basically, so you can see all the costs of all the teachers in the whole district and what that costs. What the entire cost of the administration. So rather than by individual, sometimes people, the general public likes to know, well, how much you spending on teachers everywhere? How much the administration cost? So that is by object code, right down to, we've had some additional objects, so you get some more detail out of it. But that way you can see it by, and where it's been from 2019.
So teachers, or Dave's point here, won't you the same?
Yeah.
Are you decreasing the staff or increasing the staff?
Not at all. Same,
Same.
flat.
Yep.
Yes, there are some positions that we currently have in place, critical positions that are covered by grants. So next year, we're gonna creep up to a funding cliff there. The Board of Ed was pretty specific with me to make sure that I minimize that impact, but we do have 3 positions right now that are currently on the offer and grant.
So they're going on budget,
Correct.
they're going on budget in 23 then?
They're gonna need to.
Are they considered here?
No, they're still paid out of a grant.
So
So fiscal year for 24.
Expired.
So, I'm projecting, they're virtually no change, so that they don't get a pay increase.
So they get paid, yeah. That's why you're not seeing the pay increase, which is contractual, because 3 teachers who are equivalent to the contractual increase are being covered by the ESSER grant.
Well, they formally were
Yes,
in the budget, so, okay.
correct.
All right, so you're seeing increase, it's offset by grants, essentially, okay. Because otherwise, I would say, holy cow, nobody's getting raised. No, that's next year. This is this year. FY 23 is this coming year. Is this a projected
This is fiscal year 2023.
Is that projected or present?
That's a budget that hasn't been approved yet.
That increase was minimal because we had some placement of teachers that actually came in at a lower step. So we experienced,
Saving.
yeah.
Who's experiencing it?
$35,000.
Oh,
Agree that, like, those are new,
Those are new positions.
The new for fiscal year 2022.
but I thought, based on the funding. And
Right.
some of those positions are not part of the positions that are contracted. That's okay.
They're positions,
Right.
But we'll
I was
probably
gonna-
need
I
to
was-
continue those positions.
I want to clarify, not the 3 that you want, more than 3. I recall, I want to pull out the document. There were some positions that you put a time frame. Others didn't. 3 of them expire in 2023, or we have an obligation to continue.
don't have it.
We have a need.
You have the needs there, right, but not enough.
No, we don't have an obligation,
So
but the
then-
need.
So now, the 3 that are new, how's that offsetting raises? Offset the raises if they were there before, now the grant's covering. You know what
They
I'm
weren't
saying?
there before the grant started.
this year.
They're new for this year.
Yeah, but the 3 new, and they want to carry them over on budget for next
No.
year. I think,
They're new this year covered by grant, they're gonna be on next year covered by.
No,
Correct.
And what I
Yes,
heard
yes.
was that that's
2023 will
covering.
be covered by grant.
oh, that's what the question I had.
Yeah.
I misunderstood you.
But in 2024, you're gonna see a bump in the teacher's salary. Because if you need to continue.
So back to our original question about the $11,000. If those 3 are new, I don't see how they could be covering the pay increases for all the rest of the teachers because they're new and being paid out of the grant. So
They don't. So take a step back. We've hired some new teachers this year to replace retiring teachers that were, that left or step 14.
I heard that too. They're new ones
And
coming
so that makes a big difference. I mean, it's 30 to 35 grand per person. If you hire at step 2, 3.
That includes benefits.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny, some of the folks that were brought on didn't take any benefits. But more normal, what normally happens is that people who retire are employee +1, and then you hire somebody, you know, who's got a family, and then it turns into family. So this takes into account each individual. When I did the budget for healthcare, I actually I don't do an across the board figure what each individual person is. And when we budget for a particular position, we'll do employee +1 because that kind of gives you an average. If you put employee, just budget for just employee insurance only, or hope that they don't take insurance, that never works out. So.
Sure, makes sense.
So I guess to answer Rob's question, the combination of teachers coming on at a lower rate
Yes.
plus the 3 for the grant.
Don't take it for you.
Yeah,
Take
makes
that
sense.
granted. I think that was a mistake
Yeah.
that was spoken. I just want to clarify. I don't know for sure, but it didn't sound like that could cover it. Bob described. The teachers come in. But it's helpful, the whole discussion is helpful, you want to understand that we have. It will help, we don't have to take up today, this year, but next year we have a discussion.
Approximately $90,000 in savings from those 3 people that came on at a lower pay rate.
Yeah. Okay. I had a question around legal services. Maybe. The line item of legal services. Tracking significantly higher.
You have a number on it?
Drop, it's item 50331. Historically, it looks really strange the way it looked last year.
Yeah, well,
Maybe we could get those color.
the legal services, we took some money out of that, to be covered by, HR director. We don't have, a bunch of contracts coming up, labor contracts coming up in, this year and next. So that impacted it as well. I pull out special ed legal services now, so that is something that we can report as far as the special ed expense. And it ends up, we get a better bang for your buck. I try to identify as many special ed expenses separately. And that's a good rule of thumb, especially particularly allows you to get more money from IDEA, and identifying those grants that way. The big bounces that the HR director, B, the less of the amount of contracts, and the third part of it is Melinda's awesome, and she doesn't have to call the attorney.
Oh, Melinda restrains herself because she has an HR director and she has the HR director do a lot of that paperwork and write a lot of those letters that I was relying on the attorney to do because I didn't have that area of expertise, right? Now Michelle does that for us. And so it's not $280 an hour, it's $290 now, an hour, because I can rely on the HR director to do that. And I am very careful. I think twice before I pick up that phone, knowing that it's going to be an expense to the district. And Bob is right. We only have one contract that we're dealing with right now. Last year, we were juggling what, 4?
Yeah.
4 of them. And so that involved a lot of attorney time. And so we don't have that this year, but I am being very careful because we said we were going to offset plus the HR director's legal costs.
My last district, I had to tell the attorney to stop.
Oh, boy. I have 2 others. One was on technology. Exact numbers that are called COVID. A lot of technology. I would have expected that line to slow down. You have to come back over time because they have a short life, like 10 years out of computers.
You have to budget for 25%, the 4-year life.
So that would be under normal, when life was normal. You get a big influx of money, you want a lot of computers. So there'd be an expectation that you won't need as much.
So our computers are aging out, so the laptops and Chromebooks that we originally purchased are aging out. And so we still have money in copper, about $80,000 left there. And so the replacement for some of those grade levels, we use that grant money to do that. However, as Bob said, there are still, and we reduced that line significantly, didn't we, from the previous year?
29.4% reduction in the technology hardware.
Okay, so it's just not showing here because it's,
No.
this is a roll.
I don't put in the percentages. End up with some. 29.4, when you vote from tech hardware, 50732. 732.
Question was on 50332.
Okay, I thought you were talking about tech hardware, I'm sorry.
Maybe that's the answer to the question.
Hardware and software.
It's a $10,000. Right? Technology services, 50332.
One's hardware, one's software. That's just the difference.
Let's take services.
That's where computers and show.
Oh, that's Apex, yeah.
I thought it rolled up on the technology service.
Technology services might be.
Yeah, it's our, the outside vendor that we use for Wi-Fi points, and maintenance servers, those kind
Yeah, the back-end networking stuff that Aqua can't do.
My question around it, looks down, it actually is like 46,000.
of. Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, I was just looking at the wrong line.
8%. With inflation running at 7, I'm used to seeing health insurance at 8 or 10, when inflation was 2%.
we was taking this from Anthem a couple weeks ago, where they were taking a lot more money in membership fees as opposed to paying out. You know, they're getting in 50% more than they're paying out at this point in time, but there's always a lag time. It's gonna start to bounce up. People start to go back to the doctors and start getting some of the surgeries that they've been putting off. But their number, they usually come out April 1st with their, but the best worst case scenario before we.
Okay.
You might be able to make an adjustment once we get the real numbers.
You're right, next week will be the 31st. But it might be the.
Friday.
Yeah.
So maybe the week of the 4th.
Yeah.
Maybe the week of the 4th.
Yeah.
Something like that changes. Big changes. Security is up, maybe there's there. You know, I believe it was going up because you sort of were driving, parent congestion issues kind of thing. That's still expected to be a problem going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's traffic control that takes up a lot of that time. We have offices stationed in certain strategic points around the campus, especially during obviously arrival and dismissal. The volume of cars has not decreased. As a matter of fact, once the masks were removed, the volume of cars we've experienced over the past couple of weeks actually have increased. And so whether or not parents can put their students back on the bus has yet to be seen. It's not such a significant reduction where we can take buses off the road, because we've certainly looked at that. And with our evening activities and, you know, the more enrichment activities we put in play and the more after-school programming we put in play, then, you know, we have more need for, you know, late buses, and then we need more security there to watch those programs. So we did ask the Board of Ed this year for a transfer from one budget line to another to help the increases for this year. And so we wanted to budget it for next year. We did ask the Board of Selectmen to also increase their budget by 15,000. That was not approved by the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Ed felt that we would look for that reduction somewhere in our budget to cover those extra hours. And then we're hoping that the volume of traffic stops to increase as people feel more confident.
Friday night.
Okay, the buses are up 3%, and then that contract ends.
Year 5, yeah.
And when that contract ends, you're gonna have to open it up, other services, service provider.
We'll be going out to bid, we'll talk about that with the Board of Ed probably in the fall. We hope that our current vendor comes in.
And the other item was, line special ed tuition, 50560. I recall from the night that you presented. Stu, years past, you said, Melinda, you went with what you had at that time.
Correct.
This year you added money to it above and beyond the numbers.
Yeah, the Board of Ed felt very strongly about putting at least 260,000 in that line to cover the additional anticipated students that may come in. And when you look at that slide, right, traditionally, that's been happening over the past 5 years.
Never gone down.
And it's never gone down, right?
I showed, oh, I'm sorry, a 75 cent a gallon increase.
Yeah, that was not, that was the dollar amount, not correct. We budgeted, this year it was $1.75, it was 174. Next year, we budgeted for $3, and that was a stretch. We budget together, 275. Great. Now it's not, but I mean, I believe that the longer that you wait, barrel cost has gone down by about $25. It's funny because the cost of the pump still continues to go up, and I saw a graph going down like this. Gas costs going up like this pump. So the board budgeted $3.
Bill Birch's hope is that if we can conserve some of the fuel that we currently have at $1.75 a gallon for the remainder of this school year, there will be a storage fee. But if he can hang on to that and use some of that in the fall, then we have some leverage of wait time to see if those numbers drop.
That might be-
Okay. Else, questions?
We don't need to meet next week. What's on this?
I had a couple of questions in the details. I think I figured it out, but could you confirm that elementary school nurse?
It's not,
Really,
it's
really, I think it's an offset to another line item.
yeah, the way that the state is becoming, it's more.
Page.
I think sorry, Bob, on page 6. Sorry. Project 5011. Partial year, 31,000.
94.
50,000. Zero last.
Yeah.
669.
So if you go back to the page that has object code, look at object code 50113.
Yep, we're right there.
You'll see the difference is $5,700 increase over last. It's the way that we're charging it for nurses. The state is insisting on more and more stuff being building specific as far as reporting the costs. So the nurse for the middle school, for example, used to be in elementary school, used to be charged to a health services account. And now charged to an individual building as opposed to health services. A couple of years ago, we did the same thing with health insurance. The cost of health insurance was originally absorbed by the central office. Dollar expense. Instead, now it's spread out across the schools and special ed. And when I did reporting last fall, I also had to break it out by technology. And so this way, when I break out technology and custodial down to the building level as well. This way, the state could say, well, it costs you $3 million to run that particular building. That's what it costs to run that building. And then the rest of the costs, say like central office costs, are distributed by population. So if one person costs $10,000, you know, 20 would be to the high school, you know, 2,000 would be to the high school, 3,000 would be to the middle school. So that's why you see that change in the nurses department. This is it, and as the state goes further along in their reporting from EFS, auditors talked about with some of the new stuff in EFS, which is the educational financing system. Big state report that comes out that's done in the end of August, and then corrected. The costs get distributed, so that's the difference. It doesn't impact the high school because there is the head nurse in the district who is charged of this. For costs and other costs.
So it's the allocation issue.
Yeah. That's why I like that object code page, because you actually see the total cost and how much that is.
So as long as we're all tagged to that 9. Object line and then each other out.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Might be another one of those line items, but on page 9, 900-9004, 50560. 301 on the far left, is line number 301 on the far left. 225,000.
Rob, what's the, help me out, can you tell me what the line number is? Oh, okay.
Yes, that's right, Kathy, special ed transient tuition.
Those are the 2 extra kids that we budgeted for. That we don't have right now, but we.
Is that line item? It's 301.
It's line 301.
Line 301 on page 9.
That's the anticipated growth in that need.
And I just want to alert for the finance that we have a potential resident coming, and that flushes up, and we pretty think that we're going to be liable for that. That could be. And that is on the right. And so, good thing for the had foresight to anticipate that might come, but that's just for one seat.
That 300 is the net cost of the district.
But actually, not with that, I'm sure it'll
Something in it.
qualify for excess cost, so, yeah, we'll get reimbursed for some of that, but still, that is, right now, it hasn't, happened, but we are fairly certain. We're trying to, push back on that a little bit,
If you're right, but you don't want to.
With reimbursement, that would be 145,000.
In service or out?
residential, so it's not.
So that's, you basically added the 2 people, like you had a totally separate line.
Right, we want to identify it as a separate, based on the board's direction.
Residential will be where they go to another school and they're residents there.
They live on campus, and they're there 24/7.
On another campus somewhere else, they live?
Yeah.
On that same page, now, there's another ad, look like an ad, maybe it's not, but it's line 294. Special ed, professional technical services.
So,
One second, one, sorry.
What are we doing?
Page 9, line number 294. Sorry, Melissa. I just want to make sure everybody.
okay, so, in order to keep students in district, right? Sometimes they need more significant support in the classroom. Sometimes it goes beyond just being a paraprofessional. Sometimes it requires a behavior specialist with that student in the classroom. But it is still more cost effective to have the student in district, and it's the least restrictive environment for that child. So the child's in a gen ed classroom that is being supported by a behavior specialist. And we contract with outside agents, hire those folks. They come and go as needed. But right now, our costs are up in that area because we're trying to keep more students home as a cost avoidance, and it's the right thing to do for students in the first place.
That's like an
Are we on the same line? It's been zero. It's been zero in the last few years.
Yeah, this is, it basically I split up the cost, but even with the advent of the Bradley program, those kids are, you get OT and PT, that's supplied by, those are kids that normally would have been sent out, but instead, there's a reduction in tuition, but we're paying the money practice on campus. I'm sorry.
I'm not debating or arguing about the numbers.
No, I
It
know.
was 0, 0, 0. So what were you doing before?
It's a new code I added. So that's why it was zero.
Somewhere else.
It was, yeah, but the total cost of, you'll see, Protect services, the total cost of those has gone up across the board. This year, yeah. That's
Right, already there.
yeah.
Yes.
Because if you look up, for example, at pupil services, that went, line 286 went up. Speech went down because we hired people on staff that not speech contractual anymore. So there's constant adjustments in it based on the height of the children that are.
These are all line items that change constantly anyway. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
you
a
can't-
moving target.
You can follow them all you want here, but this is all fluid.
We're after 9 o'clock. I had a few more. when we could go in. Sure, you just. Things get moved. I get why you do it. It's the right thing to track it. That's. When things drop in from 0 to 50 or 0 to 200. You shouldn't. You
Yeah.
should, it's just why.
You do some of it, again, based on, it's kind of like where you, grants, other than things that are specifically identified for special ed, we don't want to use special ed costs to be offset by grants.
Right.
Because then you can't claim it in the IDA. There's that number, and what you get the grant is that one.
Is that every month, Bob does a narrative to the Board of Ed, will explain, the shifts, but then you're thinking, we've not had that history, so.
Okay, moving on to item 11, Board of Finance member comments. Aaron, any comments on the road driving? Okay, the only one we had.
No comments from me.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. We talked last week and Dave wasn't here, the potential of moving the April 7th, 2 weeks. That's Thursday, April 7th, Wednesday, April 6th. I think that would good with everyone here. And if it works for you, Dave.
Do whatever we need, next time. Make sure we shoot out the agenda. Sure Dottie shoots it out to us 2 days beforehand to remind me.
Okay,
It's out of the normal.
good, Dave?
Good on the 6th.
Okay, so we'll change that meeting date of April 7th to April 6th. Dave has a motion to move that meeting date from April 7th to April 6th, seconded by Steve. Any more discussion on it? All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, I just wanted
Yeah,
to.
yeah. You went like this. You got it.
Any nays? That passes. Last item, any other comments? Motion to adjourn? Steve makes a motion to adjourn. Rob Mann seconds it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Right, Aaron.
I think it's.